Frankie from Flatbush rides the Brooklyn line. Got a swagger sharp like a vintage wine. Everybody knows his name from porch to stoop. Hustle and dreams in every loop. In the park he starts, hits the handball wall. Echoes hear the stories when the shadows fall. Got 1,000 tales and a comforting grin. On the streets of Flatbush where legends begin. Frankie from Flatbush got the city glow, lighting up the borough with his every show. He's the heart of Brooklyn, never laying low. Frankie from Flatbush, always on the go. Bodega lights flicker when Frankie's near. He's got the rhythm, everybody cheers. Corner talks and sidewalk chalks his fame. In the Flatbush breeze you'll hear his name. Underneath the subway hum, the magic's real. Frankie's moves got that electric feel. From Atlantic Avenue to the urban hill, Flatbush Frankie's giving you a thrill. Frankie from Flatbush got the city glow, lighting up the borough with his every show. He's the heart of Brooklyn, never laying low. Frankie from Flatbush, always on the go. Bodega lights flicker when Frankie's near, lighting up the borough with his every show. He's the heart of Brooklyn, never laying low. Frankie from Flatbush, always on the go. Frankie from Flatbush got the city.
We Molan Lambe says we can hear you, but I hadn't even started talking yet, Molan. We have breaking news as of a few minutes ago, maybe 10 or 15 minutes ago. It's been made official. Darren Mougey is the new general manager of your New York Jets. Let me know if you can hear me on the microphone okay. Let me know if you can hear me on the microphone okay, and if you can see me before we start going into all of the particulars, because you never know how many checks. You can do 1,000 checks and something can still go wrong when you go live. So let me know if you can hear me in the chat. Molan Labe is here. TL is here. Money Mougey. Rod is here. Go Jets. Molan Labe says, what? Let me know if you can hear me. Microphone check. Microphone check. Microphone check. Please, before we proceed with all of the proceedings, we don't want to start putting out all this great knowledge and no one can hear you. That'd be bad. Okay, Stack says we hear you. Lima Charlie licking chicken. All right, love it. Thank you, Mr. Stack. Molan says we can hear you. All right, so let's get started then. We have breaking news. We have breaking news. As was reported by, and we must give credit to the great, I will say now, Josina Anderson was the first one who had this yesterday, around yesterday afternoon. Nobody else had it. Nobody else could confirm it. Nobody else could figure anything out. She did not have a follow-up tweet, so we had no idea what was going on. But however, she was correct. It is Darren Mougey. And now Josina said this is her follow-up tweet today, which is actually good. This is what she's tweeting now. A league source said this to me about new Jets general manager Darren Mougey yesterday. She puts an asterisk to let people know she reported this yesterday, which she did. When this was known, quote, Darren is smart. He's honest. He will be a great partner for Aaron Glenn. He will challenge him. They will push each other. They will be a great duo. This is incredible feedback. Darren has been around a lot of great people in football, and I knew the impact of his influence was going to be clear, end quote. And then she says, y'all have a good day. Trying to say, hey, I'm the one who reported this yesterday, which she did do. And so you got to give her credit. She got it right. Nobody else had it except Josina Anderson was the only one who had it. And so that's a lot of praise there. And it's just one person. That's just our one league source, but that's a lot of praise. So that's good news. Especially because the national media doesn't want to do us any favors, doesn't want to glaze up any of our hires necessarily. So that's good to hear about Mougey. Now, let's see what other people are reporting as well so we can get everybody up to speed. Two people who really put in a great word for Mougey: current Broncos GM George Paton and current Broncos head coach Sean Payton. So now we got Sean Payton helping us hire a GM, which is was not to be expected if you remember last year. Now the Jet Beat reports that's on the national side. Let's see what other people are talking about. Now Dick Chimney puts out a rather long tweet about his thoughts on the Darren Mougey hiring, which I think is pretty accurate. Here's what Dick Chimney's saying. We need to keep in mind all these media people because the media people are trying to shape the opinions of the public. So we got to keep them in check. So here's what Dick Chimney has to say. Comes with the Sean Payton stamp of approval, and that means something to Aaron Glenn. No previous GM experience, a football/scout guy, not a contract cap guy. Number one job is to find Glenn a long-term solution at QB. Failing that, he will end up like his predecessors. That's pretty obvious. Overall, he's talking about Rich Cimini now when he says I. Overall, I've heard good things about Mougey's ability as an evaluator. That's good. Will that make him a GM? Hard to say. He never had final say in Denver, so it's all a projection. All we can do is point out his team's track record. Denver has drafted well since 2021, Patrick Surtain, picking several players that had key roles on this year's wildcard team. Looks like they have a keeper in Bo Nix, of course. Before Nix and before Sean Payton, Denver struggled to find a quarterback in the post-Peyton Manning era. There were bad draft picks, Paxton Lynch, Drew Lock, bad trades, Joe Flacco, Russell Wilson, and a bad free agent signing, Case Keenum. Result, an 8-year playoff drought. Mougey has only worked for one organization, not always a great thing, but he's been exposed to a lot of different situations, 6 head coaches, 3 different ownership groups, and 2 GMs. Spent his entire life in the West. New York isn't for everyone. He'd better pack some thick skin. So even Cimini's warning him, you're coming to New York, buddy. This isn't Denver. We got a pack of jackals as our beat reporters. So I think that's a pretty good brief summary by Cimini. Now he's a young guy. This guy, Mougey's only 39 years old, so we got a young one. And Aaron Glenn, of course, is relatively young for a head coach as well. So what we can hope is that if it works out and if we can get a quarterback situation straightened out here, maybe they could stick around for a long time and hopefully we'll have some success. That would be the hope, anyways. All right, Venom is here. Yeah, people should have waited. But you see how I did it, Venom, right? I told you exactly who was saying what. I wasn't saying it's true or not true. I'm just saying this person's saying this, that person's saying that. All right. Venom says, very happy with the hire. Play Like a Jet podcast for Mougey profile. Came away impressed. Nate says, a lot of people owe Josina Anderson an apology. Well, I don't know. The people I saw on Twitter and X and everybody was crediting Josina and was saying she's not wrong, but they just couldn't confirm her report. I don't know about anybody on YouTube or whatnot. Mojo Jet says, let's hope this works. Yeah, let's hope so, Mojo. We don't have any idea. Alan Dode says, first Jets GM, I'm older than. It's a whole new era, Alan. It's a whole new era. We got a bunch of young guys. So let's see about this article here by Zach Rosenblatt of The Athletic. Let's see what old Zach Rosenblatt is writing about old Darren Mougey. Mougey, as we call him. Mougey, Darren Mougey. Let me just get rid of this thing here. All right. And this thing here. So this was just written. Jets to hire Bougie Darren Mougey is the team's new general manager. Zach Rosenblatt, 11 minutes ago. There was a feeling around the New York Jets organization they were prepared to hire their head coach and general manager at the same time on Tuesday. At some point, things changed. On Wednesday, the Jets hired Glenn, and Thursday, they interviewed two different GM candidates. Saturday, they made their decision. Darren Mougey will be the next general manager replacing Joe Douglas. Instead, it's Mougey will be tasked with ending the NFL's longest active postseason drought. Now, Mougey joins the Jets after a long stint, blah, blah, blah. We know all of this. Both Mougey and Glenn have a close relationship with Broncos coach Sean Payton, which played a factor. Mougey worked closely with Payton over the last 2 years in Denver. So hopefully the influence of Payton and Payton over in Denver will be important, with league sources lauding Mougey for his presence, and not just because he's 6'4" and a former wide receiver. I believe he's actually 6'6". Mougey is viewed as skilled at relationship building, dealing with ownership, crucial with Woody Johnson, and building out a staff. So these are all good things. So a talent evaluator, some people say he's viewed as an excellent talent evaluator, but he's also skilled, according to this, at relationship building and dealing with ownership and building out a staff. That's crucial. He has experience. He has a background in both pro and college scouting, worked his way up the ladder. One team source said Mougey is similar personality-wise to Vikings head coach Kevin O'Connell, Mougey's roommate and college teammate at San Diego State. So that would be good. As we all know, Kevin O'Connell has a very good personality. People like working with and for him. And so that's important. Perhaps most importantly is that Mougey has not only seen what it takes to get to the mountaintop, but he's also been on the team in the doldrums. So he's been at the bottom, he's been at the top, he's been everywhere in between. And he's seen a turnaround, and he's also seen bad contracts like the Russell Wilson one, and the importance of how to find your rookie quarterback. In this case, for the Broncos, they wanted Bo Nix the whole time. Mougey, of course, will have his work cut out for him in New York. I would think, too, that we're probably keeping Phil Savage around with this young fella here. Probably going to keep Savage around as one of his lieutenants. Mougey has a decision to make on Aaron Rodgers, so now that'll be the next question to come around. I would think maybe within the next week we'll have an answer there. Free agents. This is a roster that should have the pieces to compete right away, depending on what Mougey does at quarterback and filling in the other holes. But most important task will be building something sustainable beyond this year. So I think that's a pretty good write-up there. Pretty good write-up by Zach. That's fair. Pointing out all of the challenges he has, and then all the things he's done in the past, and all the people who are vouching for him and what his skill sets are, according to those sources. So that's I think that's a pretty fair article by Zach Rosenblatt. Then you have this, A to Z Sports, less well-known outlet, but this is written by Mike Antonio. Mike Antonio. Jets may have found the perfect GM to navigate the strange times ahead for the franchise. This says we got some strange times ahead. The New York Jets have found their new general manager, and this is going off of the Josina tweet. And let's see what this says about why Mougey. It says Mougey is one of the NFL's fastest rising executives. This one says he's 6'6", so his height is a matter of conjecture apparently, because Zach Rosenblatt had it at 6'4". This has it at 6'6". Roommate Kevin O'Connell, all that. This just goes through his resume. Has a strong relationship with Sean Payton and, of course, George Payton, the Payton and Payton team over there in Denver. And then the writer says, I think, so again, this is not good journalism. I think because who are you? Some guy who writes for A to Z Sports. But nonetheless, I think this is a good hire for the Jets. Good hire for the Jets. So at least, we're getting some positive press here. So that's not a bad thing. He isn't someone that is getting the job simply for being around a lot, but because he has shown talent for the position he is in. Mougey is said to have an eye for talent, which is something the Jets will need. Every team needs that. As they attempt to enter a strange phase, he says, in the team's history. I don't think it's that strange. There's a lot of talent on the Jets roster with the glaring hole at quarterback that isn't easily fixed. So one sentence, he says there's a strange phase. Then in the second sentence, he sums up what's happening very easily. How strange is the phase when you can sum it up in one sentence? Because this is what it is. There's a lot of talent on our roster, but we have a glaring hole at quarterback that isn't easily fixed. That's not strange phase. There's lots of teams who have that same situation. I don't know how strange it could be when you can summarize it in one simple sentence. But the second sentence here is correct. One of his first and most important tasks will be to decide Aaron Rodgers, blah, blah, blah. We know that. But I have the confidence. This guy writing the article, who no one's ever heard of, he has the confidence that Mougey, DM, Money Mougey, Bougie Darren Mougey, can get the job done. So at least this guy's giving him some plaudits. Whoever this guy is, Mike Antonoli, Antianu, whoever this is. He's got all the confidence in the world in him. This is the guy right here. This is your new general manager, Jet fans. Get to know this face. Although, of course, you won't see it as much as Aaron Glenn. They make the head coaches in the NFL go in front of the media 4 times a week. The GM, hardly ever. So maybe 4 times a year, you see the GM. And you never see the owner, unless he's Jerry Jones. Then you see him all the time. But this is your GM right here. So this is our guy. And so that's a couple of fairly, I would say, decent media pieces right off the bat for this guy. So that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Okay, a bunch of chats here. Harlan Abraham is here. He says, let's hope that the new GM and new head coach make it to a second contract. Yes, and maybe a third contract. How about that? Let's hope we're able to find some long-term success, Harlan. Let's have some optimism, a little bit of positivity. Perhaps these young gentlemen will come in and have new ways of doing business, new ways of utilizing all of the assets in a team. Let's see what Bougie's going to do with his staff. They said one of his strengths is building up a staff. He knows how to do it. Well, let's see what he does. I mean, we got the cap people, we got the analytics people, we got lots of things going on. It's not just him and Phil Savage sitting around. There's a big staff involved. Finnegan's Flight Crew is here. The great Phil Adams is here from Great Britain. I go for a bath, and that's the last time that's the way it works, Phil Adams. Alan says his background is similar to Aaron Glenn working his way up. Yeah, seems that way. Infrared says, I got a feeling this would have happened. I got a feeling. Yeah, you had a feeling maybe because Josina told us this yesterday. Now, Justin, what's his name? Schultz. The Schultz report. So Jordan Schultz says, no, that's not the tweet I wanted. Jordan Schultz said, well, two things Schultz said. One, a big push and sign off from Broncos GM George Paton helped move the needle for Mougey. So that means George Paton gave him a great reference and really, whatever Paton said about him really moved the Jets to move in his direction. So that's good. And what else did Jordan say? Oh, Schultz also said, in what was a very tight race, Darren Mougey secures the big chair. So I think ultimately, look, I think we had three good candidates, probably Mougey and Brown a little better than Newmark, and then we came away with the one we liked. Is it going to work? Who knows? But that is interesting. Now, Adam Schefter says, when the Broncos interviewed Aaron Glenn for their head coach vacancy in Dearborn, Michigan in 2022, Darren Mougey was in the meeting as part of Denver's search committee. So he got an up close and personal view of Aaron Glenn and his vision for a team. 3 years later, Glenn was part of the Jets contingent that interviewed Mougey. So it's sort of like a circle of life. Now Glenn and Mougey are joining forces to lead the Jets. So then you know that the head coach and general manager are going to be working very closely together. They seem like they're very aligned and compatible, and I don't think we would have hired Mougey without the sign off of Aaron Glenn, for sure. Swamp Rangers here. I think if we hire the OC from LAR, it's signaling they move on from Rodgers. Why would you say that? Phil Adams says they'll be 6'10" in the morning. Yeah, he's just going to keep getting taller. Now, the interesting thing is, notably, Aaron Glenn is 5'9.5". So when Glenn and Mougey start going to these all-star games and the combine and all that, it's going to be a little bit of a Mutt and Jeff type of situation. We're going to have big, tall Darren Mougey and somewhat diminutive Aaron Glenn will be our representative. So that's going to look funny. Get ready for that. People will probably make jokes about that. Todd says, howdy, good to see you, Todd. Andy Jets is here. He says, yeah, he'll be 7 feet by the press conference. Maybe he'll be 8 feet tall. That'd be something. Harlan says, so far, the Jets haven't had a GM or HC make it to their second contract. Well, that's not true. Rex Ryan got a second contract. Didn't Herm Edwards get a second contract? I think. Now, Mangini did not. Bowles did not. Gase did not. Saleh did not. So mostly haven't, but I know we gave Rex Ryan a second contract. That's for sure. But yeah, has not been a good track record, Harlan. We know this. We're Jet fans. We're aware of our troubles. Part of the troubles is the quarterback. Part of the troubles is the head coach, and part of the troubles is the GM. Those are the three most important people in the org, aside from ownership as well. Alan says, hit the like button, everybody. Hit the like button. Oh, I see. So Swamp Ranger says the OC from LAR would have a modern offense versus a Kubiak hybrid West Coast modern. I don't know what the hell Kelly's going to run, to be honest. I mean, McVay, you know what? If we hire Nick Kelly, and one of the reasons I didn't want to do the research beforehand because it's a lot of work, Swamp Ranger, to be honest. But McVay comes from the West Coast tree, but McVay is also known as an innovator. So I think if we hire Caley and we assume that his main influence is going to be McVay, don't forget he was with the Patriots for a long time. The Patriots ran the shoot. Yeah, I'm forgetting the name. I should look it up in this book right here. You can't see it. This will tell me. but anyway, the Patriots run a different offense than the West Coast offense. That's where he was just mainly influenced under Josh McDaniels, and then he went over to McVay. So you would think he's probably going to be most influenced by McVay in the modern day, like you're saying. But I would then want to research McVay and see why the McVay offense is different than a traditional West Coast offense, because McVay comes from a West Coast offense tradition. Don't forget, he's off of the Shanahan tree, but he's also known as extremely innovative. So that is going to take a lot of that's going to take a lot of research to really understand and break down and try to read the tea leaves as to what Kaylee will bring to the table, actually. And then once you know that, then you could say, is this something that's going to appeal to Rodgers or not? That's a lot of work to be done there. So, Zachary Berner says, do you think Mougey picks a quarterback in this draft or waits for next year? We don't know. It depends on what happens with Rodgers. Next thing is we got to find out what this brain trust is going to do with Rodgers and Adams and Lazard. If they get rid of Rodgers, then we're almost certainly going to pick a quarterback. But also they could get rid of Rodgers and bring in, Justin Fields and expect Justin Fields to really be the starter, for example. They could so there's a lot of different options. We don't know at this point in time. We have to see what the first domino probably. So once all of these GM chairs, so we were one of the last for the GMs, I think, and then the Saints still have to hire their head coach for example, and for example, they just finished a head coaching interview with Mike Kafka for the head coaching position of the Giants. So the Saints have to get done with their hiring, and then all the staffs have to get filled out. And then once all that happens, that's the coaching carousel and the GM carousel to a lesser extent. And then the quarterback carousel will begin. And probably the first domino in the carousel, although carousels don't really have dominoes, but the first domino to fall in terms of quarterbacks and movement and, things that have to be decided, who's retiring, who's not retiring. Is Matthew Stafford retiring, for example? Probably not, but he could. He was playing with broken ribs, we learned recently. So with all the injuries he's had over the years, maybe he decides to hang him up. I would doubt it, but he could, for example, and that would change the nature of things because now the Rams desperately need a quarterback, for example. But Rodgers will probably be the first domino. And then the first thing to be decided is, does he want to play anymore at all? Yes, no. If it's no, then he goes away and we're in a different spot. If it's yes, does he want to play with us? And then do we want him back? And if it's a yes, then we're not going to do any quarterback stuff probably this year. Just punt it to next year and build up the defense this year. And that's one way we could go. But we really don't know, and we really can't answer any draft questions until we start answering some of these questions. Who's on our staff? What kind of defense are we running? What's our quarterback situation? And all that. So that's why it's good that we got this done now. I assume they're going to probably do a joint press conference now on Monday. I would bet that's the information that's going to come out now. That it'll be announcing Aaron Glenn and Darren Mougey on Monday, probably. That information has not come out just yet, but I would think that's probably what they're doing. Monday, they bring them both in, they do their press conference, and then they get to work. It's time to get to work, boys. You got a lot of work ahead of you. I mean, these guys had a lot of work ahead of them. That's from Zachary. Oh, yeah, that's what I thought, Alan. Yeah, Mike Tenenbaum. That's what I was thinking also, because it was like the Tenenbaum Ryan tandem. But that was a long time ago. Loco Jets. McVay might be creating his own coaching tree at this point. Yeah, that's true. By this point, you can say McVay has his own tree, but he does come from the Shanahan tree. No denying that. But by now people are starting to pick apart his staff. Well, a lot of these staffs are getting picked apart. The Lions are getting picked apart. 49ers for years, not really so much this year, but previous years would get picked apart. It's just what happens. Success, everybody wants to pick off your successful people. Braden from New Zealand is here. Good to see Braden, the old editor-in-chief from back in the day when I was trying to get press credentials. Remember that, Braden? Well, thank God for that. It's official. We're building something here, Frankie, and all the pieces matter. Yeah, I'll probably have to bring that one back. Probably have to bring that one back on the old videos. We're building something here, detective, and all the pieces matter. Yeah, they sure do. But the biggest piece of all, of course, the one that matters the most is the quarterback and what the hell we're going to do with ours this year. And I assume this is going to be revealed fairly shortly. I would think within the next week or two, we're going to know what's going on with Rodgers. And then once we know that, then we can speculate about other options, whether it be Justin Fields or draft someone, or if we're going to draft someone, who's it going to be and what round, and all the things, all of the headaches and all of the sort of annoying dialogue and conversations and arguments that you have when it comes to quarterbacks. When a team needs a quarterback, everybody's got an opinion. Everybody wants to put in their opinion for their favorite college guy. What about this one? What about Jackson Dart? What about Nathan Rourke? What about this one? What about that one? It gets a little tiring, but nonetheless, it's not that tiring. But nonetheless, we will be following it very closely. But this is an important piece that's now in place. Now the Saints got to finish up their process. Everybody got to get their staff. I mean, I would hope that starting tomorrow we get some notification who's on the staff. Can we get Nick Caley announced? Can we get Steve Wilkes if that's our DC? By the way, I like Steve Wilkes a lot as the DC. If that's who it is, I'll be happy with that. Not a great track record as far as head coach, but I think he's a very good defensive coordinator. So can we get some of these people in place so that way we can start thinking about what are we going to run, and then once we know that, what our needs are going to be. Let's just make sure there's no other information coming out right now. And I would say also, this is a good test case for the validity, and I was leaning heavily on this yesterday, of Josina Anderson's reporting. I said yesterday during the live stream that I don't think Josina gets too many wrong as far as a track record is concerned. And track record is important when you're trying to figure out what sources of information do I need to keep and which one do I need to filter out, because they don't get things right very often. So this one was like, okay, here's a test case. Josina was the only reporter, the only one. I have a list of all the main national writers for the NFL and another list for all the Jet Beat writers. And so I can check and see everything they're tweeting about in 1 second. And Josina was the only one who had this yesterday, the only one. Ian Rappaport did not have it. Adam Schefter did not have it. Pelissero, Glazer, all these people did not have it. Josina only. And then the Jet guys, of course, all read the national people, of course. And then they get on the phone and try to confirm or deny or do further reporting. And they could not verify. And they came out and told you. Connor Hughes came out and told you. I've been trying to get information from the Jet sources about what Josina is reporting, but I cannot get any information. He's basically said, I cannot confirm or deny, because he just couldn't get the information. Doesn't mean Josina is wrong. It just means he couldn't get information to corroborate or not or deny that report. So that was interesting. Nobody else in the world had it except for Josina, and she had it. So that's another point in her favor in terms of future reporting. When she reports something, you take it seriously. So that was an interesting case because usually once something comes out by one of them, then they all kind of pile on and follow up and get the information starts going to all kinds of different people. But in fact, yesterday, and she did not do a follow-up tweet, which she often does do, but she did not do a follow-up tweet all day, which I also found odd, but I guess she didn't feel like she needed to. I thought she might maybe she would throw a tweet about the timing, say, because it was like a lot of people were running with this yesterday, and we did an emergency live stream based on the tweet, basically, and a lot of people were doing things like that and writing reports and articles and doing videos and everything, all based on this one report that was not corroborated by anybody else. So very interesting situation. And I thought she would come back out with something saying, I didn't say it was happening today, guys. I said it's happening, but it might take a day or two or something, but she didn't do that either. So that was interesting. Very interesting. So just checking for the latest. You would think now that the Jet beat writers. All right. So yeah, here's some more information. Dick Chimney reporting, as of 6 minutes ago, during the vetting and interview process, the Jets were able to glean some intel on Mougey from Rick Spielman, the 33rd team, the former Vikings GM, whose right-hand man in Minnesota is now the Broncos GM, George Payton. So there's something from Samini about how very specifically the 33rd team helped us. We had a question yesterday about what did the 33rd team really do? Why are we paying them all this money? Well, there's an example, just one, and I went through a whole litany of other things yesterday as well. But that's another reason why you outsource or why you hire Tanny and Spielman in the 33rd team, because when you hire a guy like Rick Spielman and a guy like Tannenbaum, both former GMs. Remember, Tannenbaum went from us. Tannenbaum was a GM for us, and then he was a GM for the Dolphins for a short period of time. And so they both have all of that experience, all of their contacts with agents, all of their contacts with all kinds of personnel. And they have all those contacts in their Rolodex, so to speak. And when you hire them, you get the benefit of all of that experience and all of those contacts that you don't have in your organization necessarily. So I think it was a great idea to hire the 33rd team. And even though it was a little unconventional at the time, once you unpack exactly what happened here, it seems like they were quite valuable to the Johnsons. I mean, I think we got a good candidate for GM. Now we don't know if they're going to work out. Nobody knows that, and I'm not saying that. Nobody knows that. But we got two good candidates. That's the way I look at it in these positions. And we're the Jets. It's not exactly, and we don't have a franchise quarterback in place today. So you might, and we have a meddlesome owner and all this weird stuff coming out in the press, and we haven't won in 14 freaking years, and we still were able to land two very good candidates. So to me, that in and of itself speaks to the value of the 33rd team, in addition to the process that they laid out that got us to this point. So, and then here's Samini adding some other information. Samini said, during the vetting and interview process, the Jets were able to glean some intel on Mougey from Rick Spielman, 33rd team, the former Vikings GM, whose right-hand man in Minnesota is now the Broncos GM, George Payton. So we were able to get some intel that we wouldn't ordinarily get, because Spielman can pick up the phone and call up George Payton and say, "Hey, buddy, what's up? Let's have a let's have a chat." And Payton, probably couldn't do that, wouldn't or couldn't do that. But Spielman's his buddy, so helps us get some information that maybe we couldn't otherwise get. So all that said, I think, considering our current situation, I think we should be very happy with these two hires. I don't see how anybody could really seriously say we didn't do well, considering our situation. you know, NYJ Matt is putting out Darren Mougey San Diego State highlights. How this guy can put together these things, I have no idea. This is why NYJ Matt is the GOAT, right? He's putting out Darren Mougey San Diego State highlights. Mougey the emoji. Hope emoji packs JFM in his. Yeah, bring back JFM, Mougey, please. Mr. Green Jeans, look for some experience to enter the building. Yeah, let's hope so. So number one, I would hope we keep Phil Savage in a lieutenant position here. There's some experience right there. But also, we probably need an experienced cap person. You know, I think we have some cap people on the team already. And I think probably one of the more interesting decisions this GM's going to have is whether or not he has control over those people. And if so, what's his evaluation of them and do they need to be replaced? And if not, if he feels like they should be replaced, then he would have to convince Woody to do so. So we probably need to improve that situation. But we already have Phil Savage in place. I would hope we keep him, but we could always build out the staff more. But one of the skill sets that the articles had about Mougey is that he knows he's really good at building out a staff and having good relationships with people. So let's hope he takes that to heart. Yeah, exactly. So Shady Tom Brady got the Las Vegas Raiders to hire John Spytek, High Tech Spytek, they call him, as the GM. And then they hired 73-year-old gum chomper in chief. Jojo says, we finally hired a GM. Yeah. That doesn't matter, Braden. Look, who cares? I speculated yesterday that it might have been that the contract was held up. Because how did Josina have a league source that had the information, but Connor Hughes with his jet sources didn't have the information? How's that possible? Well, it's possible because the league has to approve all contracts. So maybe the Jets sent over the contract for approval, and so the person at the league office knew about it because he sees the contract has his name on it, and so that's Josina's contact. But the Jets could not talk about it to anyone until they got it back from the league. Perhaps this is me speculating. With the approval, you can't. Maybe that's the rules. You can't say the guy's got the job until the league has completed its review of the. And maybe the guy's not supposed to leak it to anyone either, but he did to Josina for whatever reason. That's the only way that I see that can make sense, because the Jets were just waiting for the contract to come back with approval. But does it really matter at this point? We got our guy. It didn't cost us anything. It's immaterial. We got our guy. He's here. Let's be happy. McGuire says Josina is the best out there. Super underrated. One thing about Josina, I think if you look at the way she reports things sometimes, the way she writes, and also the way she has her environment situated when she does like videos, it seems to me she's living her life like an art piece. So it's almost like she's made her life into a painting or an artistic expression or something, which is really interesting and cool, but it's totally off the beaten path of how you would expect someone covering football, of all things, to do things. So I think this is probably why she's underrated. But the way I see it, when she puts something out, you pay attention because it's accurate. She has excellent sources. She's a veteran at this. She's been doing it, 20 plus years? And her sources are some of the best. And here again is a confirmation of that fact. She was the only person who had this yesterday. Everybody must have been. I mean, how frustrating do you think it must have been for Zach Rosenblatt and Country Club Connor and Dick Chimney and all these losers? They couldn't get any information. Dennis Wazak, they couldn't break. These people never. Well, Hughes and Rosenblatt do break stuff sometimes, but Samini occasionally. But Wazak and Andy Vasquez, these people never break any stories. What sources do they have? Why do they even have jobs? I mean, isn't your job to break stories? And so these people, but who normally do break stories like Hughes and Rosenblatt, they must have been tearing their hair out, going, "Where? How is Josina getting this information? I can't. Nobody's giving me anything. I got the agents. Don't forget, the agents are mostly their contacts and their sources, and the agents didn't know. So they must have been going, how the hell does Josina have this? Well, she knew somebody at the league office. She probably knows all the lawyers there. Get them in your Rolodex, Hughes and Rosenblatt and Chimney, and all these other losers. So Braden says, if we do end up with Rodgers, how much of a pay cut do you have to think he takes to make it work? Well, this is what I think too. If it's not just Rodgers, so I've been saying that the three amigos go together, and that's probably true, but it's not necessarily true. And that would be Rodgers, Adams, and Lazard. And if the decision was made that they do want to go with Rodgers for one more year or so, and then the idea being the 26th class of quarterbacks will be stronger, so let's get our guy. Then I think all three of those people need to redo their contracts to help out. And the pitch would be, okay, we want to go with you guys. We're going to keep you together. What we're going to do is we're going to sign Conklin back. We're going to sign Morgan Moses as to have something in place at right tackle. Then we're going to draft one of those also, but so that the offense will be mostly the same, but with good coaching this time, and a full year of healthy Rodgers in theory. But we can't do that with your contracts. These contracts are ridiculous. We need you to basically start all over. We need to just redo these. And that would be some way to go. And then that gets the cap down, for this year, obviously, and enables you to maneuver. Then the next decision would be about CJ Mosley. Then you got to decide if you're signing people like Sherwood and Eccles, for example, which you could do if they all take pay cuts. But do they want to do that? Who knows? Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But these are the initial decisions that this brain trust is going to have to make, and they're very important decisions. So I hope they're ready. Hope they're bringing their nootropics with them when they get here, because there's lots of decisions to be made right off the bat. This is not an easy thing. So I hope Mougey's ready. Hope this kid is ready, man, because this is not an easy situation. I hope he's ready for it. Phil Adams said Josina went with a league source, so the Jets didn't leak. Yeah, not to her, and not for that. Somebody said the Jets put something out about Kevin Mawai's birthday. Happy birthday to Kevin Mawai. And I said, hey, why don't we team up Mawai and Mangold, O-line coaches for the Jets? You could do a lot worse. That would be a way to try and find some O-line coaching talent that hasn't flourished yet. It would be a bit of a gamble. Remember, the O-line coach is the most important coach on the whole team except for the coordinators. There's no doubt about it in my mind. And it's like, okay, where are we going to find a good O-line coach? Because the best ones obviously are employed already. Stoutland, Fraley, these guys, you can't steal them because they're not going to move just for a slight increase in title. Like you can make them, like Hank Fraley staying in Detroit because they gave him a title bump and more money. Jeff Stoutland is not leaving Philadelphia for something like that, I don't think. And all of these great O-line coaches, they're not moving around. So how are we going to, and you really don't want to have a subpar O-line coach. Well, what if you took a chance on two guys who don't have that much experience, Mawai, Mangold, and if they want to do it, take a chance that they could be great. It's risky. It's risky, but that could be a way to go. And actually, the O-line coach, once that gets announced, whoever that is, I think I'll do a whole video on it because there's probably not anyone who wants to do a video about the hiring of the new O-line coach of the Jets, but I do because I know that guy, other than the coordinators, is the most important coach on the whole staff. And we've had a problem with that, recently. Now we have good talent, 4 out of 5 positions already filled. So if we get some good coaching, if we get a tight end in here who can block somebody, like I want to sign a Mo Alley Cox, for example, or Daniel Jeremiah, for example, in his mock draft today, has us taking Tyler Warren, which is an interesting pick. And that would be a guy who would help our running game in addition to the passing game. But you need tight ends who can block as well. Braden says, I'm happier now than I was 8 weeks ago. That's for sure. Yeah. Seems like it was a good process to me. Some coaches from Denver. We'll see what we'll see. I mean, we might. I don't know. The thing about Aaron Glenn is he has experience from all over the place. He has a wide range of relationships. The Detroit coaches are all getting picked apart already by Ben Johnson's picked some up. So I don't know if we're gonna. I don't know what talent is left over there. There's a couple of them that are getting promotions, like the linebacker coach there is getting promoted to DC, for example. So he's probably not going anywhere. But maybe, I don't know. Who the hell's even on their staff? I mean, you hear about Sean. So Vance Joseph's their DC. We know that. We're not taking him. We interviewed him for the head coaching job. I mean, only 2 coaches I know from. Well, let's freaking look it up. Let's look up who their coaches are. Jets and Giants fans. Let's look. This is a good question. Broncos.com. Oh, I didn't go to Broncos.com. You want to go to DenverBroncos.com. Who are these coaches on their team, anyways? I don't know. I think I know their names. Coaches. Let's see who their coaches are, buddy. Sean Payton, head coach. We're not getting him. Paul Kelly, assistant to the head coach. We're not getting him. Defensive coordinator, Vance Joseph. We're not getting him. Defensive line, Jamar Kane. Ooh, here's one we could get. How about Jim Leonard? Ever hear of him? Yeah, let's do a little share screening. Hang on a second. We got one. Hang on a second. This one makes a lot of sense. Hang on. Hang on for technology. Oops. What? No, we don't want that. Hang on for technology. Hold one. What about this guy, Jim Leonard? Remember him? This is Jimmy Leonard, who is on the Jets, the defensive back. The defensive pass game coordinator, defensive backs, Jim Leonard. Only 1 year. He put in a bunch of years in college level, and then he went over to Peyton staff. I would say this is a guy we might target. Has Jet ties, very well thought of. He could come over. Maybe he's our DC, for example. That would be and they couldn't block us for that. That would be quite a promotion for Jim Leonard, but he was also head coach of, chat helps me out. He was also head coach of some Nebraska. I want to say Nebraska, but I forget. He has head coaching experience in college. Chat will let me know where Jim Leonard was a head coach in college. And then he came and joined Sean Payton's staff. So here's a guy. Jim Leonard right here. fit, ex-Jet, Jet legend from the Rex Ryan era. Very underrated. Jimmy Leonard was a very important part of those Rex Ryan teams, and that's a guy we could target. What about now these other guys? I don't know. Defensive quality. This is a quality control coach. Linebackers: Michael Wilhoit. Never heard of him. Joe Vitt. I don't think we're going to get Joe Vitt. This is an old head here. 43 years of experience. He's probably not going anywhere. Was saying Leonard. Yeah. So there you go. Eddie McGuire had it. Inside linebacker coach Greg Manuski. I mean, he's probably not going anywhere. But this guy here, look at this young fella, Michael Wilhoit. Here's a guy, he's doing outside linebackers now. Maybe you make him the linebacker coach. Some teams do inside and outside linebackers separately. Some just do linebacker coach. Maybe you make him the linebacker coach and assistant defensive coordinator. Is this guy any good? I don't know. I've never heard of him. Michael Wilhoit? I don't know who that is. That's a guy we could get, though, because look at his profile. Young guy, only 6 years in the league. Maybe it's time for him to move up. We're not going to take Joe Vitt. This is an old guy who didn't want to do anything. We're not taking their quality control guys. Greg Manuski, 22 years. I mean, probably not. Defensive line. I mean, maybe Jamar Kane is a guy we look at. Only 2 years. He's already the defensive line coach. Defensive line also is a very important coach as well. So I would say out of these guys, Jim Leonard, pops right off the screen, as McGuire was saying. Right, jumps right off the screen. There's a guy we could pick off. He's only their defensive backs coach. Well, this says defensive pass game coordinator, defensive backs. So this could be DC. That's a big promotion for him. Maybe this. Well, you can't really steal someone and give them the same title. You got to promote them, generally speaking. But here's a guy, Michael Wilhoit. Maybe instead of being outside linebackers, now he wants to be linebackers. He wants to do the inside and the outside. On the offense, Joe Lombardi is their OC, although, of course, their functional OC is, of course, Sean Payton. Pete Carmichael, this is a guy from New Orleans. I know that much. Senior offensive assistant, but he was a longtime Sean Payton consigliere over there in New Orleans. These other guys, I don't know at all. But you're looking for a young guy who might want a promotion. Declan Doyle, running back coach here, Lou Ayeni. This is a young fella, 2 years experience, but I don't know anything about him at all. Austin King, here could be somebody we look at, right? This guy is an assistant offensive line coach, young. Is he any good? I don't know. No idea. But he's an assistant offensive line coach. You would have to promote him up to O-line coach. That could be a way that we search for talent for an O-line coach. You take the assistant O-line coach from somebody. Then you have Davis Webb. This is a young guy who hung around the NFL as a backup for a while. This is a guy who's very well thought of in terms of an offensive mind. This guy is probably an up-and-comer here. Davis Webb. I've heard his name thrown about a bit. So that could be a guy that could be OC, for example, but he's probably not ready for that yet. Only 2 years experience. Ryan Goldstein says, Joe Vitt was a Jet coach under Gase. Really? Joe Vitt, this guy? Well, I think that Gase staff was, like probably Frankenstein together. This guy looks like he's 150 years old, Brian. What do you do? I don't think he's. I don't think he wants to come back. He's probably like, you know what? I'm 80 years old. What do you want me to move again? Get out of here. Although maybe you never know. Yeah. So McGuire's saying, "Oh, it's Wisconsin GVS." Yeah, right. Okay, there you go. I knew it was something like that. Wisconsin, yeah. But that's a big program, and he was the HC there, so that's good experience. Yeah. So any of these guys here, Kiri Colbert, wide receiver coach. I mean, look at all these young fellas that they got. Declan, look how young these guys look. Young fella, young fella, young fella. Passing game specialist, Zach Grossi, the Grossi posse. I mean, could be any of these young fellas we might steal. But if you ask me, are they any good? I have no idea. Only people I really have heard of are Davis Webb and Pete Carmichael. He's not going anywhere. He's loyal to Sean Payton. He's not going anywhere. Joe Lombardi, but we can't take him. And then Jimmy Leonard. So out of these guys, it seems like Jim Leonard would be the one to try and take and make him the DC. That would make a lot of sense. He has big time college. Well, not big time, but Wisconsin's pretty big program. College head coaching experience. Not a lot of NFL experience as a coach, but that could be a guy. And don't forget, Glenn's on the defensive side, so he doesn't necessarily need an experienced guy, even though we keep hearing about Steve Wilkes, for example, which I'd be in favor of myself. Maybe he goes with somebody like a Jim Leonard, knowing that Glenn is going to have a big influence, obviously, on the defensive side. So these are their people. I don't know. You guys see anybody else that makes any sense for us? What do you guys think? Austin King? I don't know any. Who are these people? Logan Kilgore. But look how young they are, though. He's got a few like vets mixed in here, but for the most part, these are all young guys. Young looking. Look how young these guys look. Very young staff that Sean Payton put together. This kid looks like he's in high school. Fabian Upshaw. Is this kid in high school? What's going on here? I mean, he's got a couple of vets, but look at all these youngsters. Put together a very young guy. Vitt is Adam Gase's father-in-law. What? What is going on here with this Joe Vitt? Are you guys just kidding or what? Perplexity. Who is Adam Gase married to? We're going to find out, Eddie McGuire. Adam Gase is married to Jennifer Gase. Aha! You are correct, sir. She is the daughter of Joe Vitt, a football coach, which makes them very much a, quote, football family. Well. Well, then Joe Vitt is not coming here. That is for sure. Anything with the stink of Adam Gase on it is not coming to the Jets. I'll tell you that much. She's kind of okay. I'm not going to say that. They have, looks like they have 4 kids, so good for them. Well, I mean, you wonder why a guy like Gase couldn't get back into the game as like an assistant quarterback coach, like with the Broncos, for example. Why he can't even get on their staff? Why is that? Why is that? Look at this guy. So he's definitely not coming back to the Jets, that's for sure. So, you never know with these people, man. You never know. You never know. Well, one thing I was researching earlier too is, one thing, if we don't bring Rodgers back, and if the plan would be to try to go after, say, Justin Fields. Now, a lot of teams are going to try to go after Justin Fields, it seems to me. We've seen a lot of chatter from a lot of different fan groups about, hey, let's try and get Justin Fields. One thing we have that not every team has is a connection with Justin Fields through Garrett Wilson. And so they had it. I was looking this up. It says they formed a strong quarterback wide receiver connection during their time together. So Justin Fields may want to come here. Number one, again, assuming Rodgers is gone, because he thinks he can win the starting job and get an incentive-laden contract that would be lucrative for him. And number two, to play with his old buddy, Garrett Wilson. So that could be interesting. So there you go. Declan Doyle interviewed for Bears OC. So there you go. So I guess somebody's after him. Well, Shamini has a quote now from John Elway, which is just an obvious thing. So it's not, I was hoping this would be a little bit more complimentary, but um, zero pocket awareness. Yeah, no kidding, McGuire. That's why you'd have to run a triple option zone read offense for him. And you'd have to run a very different kind of offense. I'm not saying he's a good option, but he's an option. And you'd have to run a very specific offense for him. So what did Elway? Elway said if Mougey gets that thing turned around with the Jets, he'll be a hero. They've been bad for so long. That's not a great quote. Why would Samini even print this? Like this is just an obvious. This is obviously true. Yeah, and that's what people are saying in the comments. It's like, gee, what an insightful viewpoint. Yeah, no kidding. uh, so here's something interesting. So speaking of experience, Zach Rosenblatt is reporting as of 9 minutes ago, and I agree with this assessment. A name to keep an eye on for GM Darren Mougey's Jet staff. Former Raiders GM Dave Ziegler came up together in Denver, have known each other a long time, and Ziegler would bring some experience into the room. Exactly. And Ziegler is listed as one of Mougey's sort of mentors in as he was coming up. So that could be a way to get more experience in the room. If you had two assistants, so if you have Mougey and then you have your two lieutenants being Phil Savage and Dave Ziegler, that's pretty good. That's a lot of brain power right there in that little trio. That would be a very interesting trio. McGuire says because Samini's dick. Yeah, he's a dick. We get it, but like also as a reporter, like this isn't even negative for Jet fans. This is not a poke at Jet fans. Any Jet fan would look at this and go, "No done, doofus." Like it's not, it's not clickbait. Nobody's going to click anything. It's just bad reporting. It's just like Rich got a quote from Elway and he wanted to print it. So, okay, I guess. I mean, does any Jet fan think we haven't been bad for so long? It's just obviously true. Of course. GBH says the thing that intrigues me about Fields is his mobility. Well, that's the whole thing, GBH. If you go that route, then you have to have a very specific offense. It's called the run play option, RPO, triple option offense, and you'd have a running quarterback running all over the place. It's not the best thing in the world because they take a lot of hits and there's a lot of injury risk. But Fields is an elite runner. He's elite. He's already had 1,000-yard season, I believe. Let me make sure of that. If not, very close. I mean, this guy's not just like an okay runner. This is a high school stats. This is an elite runner. Yeah. He's had a season where he ran for over 1,100 yards as a quarterback. I don't think people understand. 1,100 yards and 7.1 yards per carry. I mean, that is elite. That's probably what, top 20 all time for quarterback seasons rushing wise. So he can do that, in other words. And if you got him, you have to have a very specific type of offense where he's not sitting there in the pocket. You can't let him do that because McGuire's right. He has no pocket, but you can't let him sit in the pocket. That would be that he can't do that. You would not want him to do. It's like taking somebody and saying, "Okay, you're going to be Joe Montana now." It's like, well, I'm not Joe Montana. I have a totally different skill set. So you basically would have to run him a lot because that's what he can do. And just it's going to be RPOs. It's going to be basically Lamar Jackson Jr. and with less throwing than than Lamar does now. Look at the way they use Lamar. Look at the way they use Jaden Daniels to an extent. These guys who can really run. Fields is one of those. So if you got him, that's what you would do. Now, is that a great option? No, obviously not. But there's not a lot of great options, like you're saying. There's not a lot out there. So it's one option that you could do. And you could maybe lean on the fact that he did play pretty well, including passing wise, this year for the Steelers. So the kid is now, how old is he now? You figure you might want to bet on maybe he could be a little better passing wise. He's 25 now. So you could say his brain is fully developing. I think the male human brain develops at age 26. Excuse me, completely. He's 25 now, and you could say maybe he's getting better, and you would use as your evidence for that. He had the highest completion percentage ever in his whole career last year. Now it's only 6 starts, but Tomlin famously yanked him in favor of Russell Wilson. He had by far his highest completion percentage. By far he threw a 5-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. His best passer rating of his career. So now it's a short sample size, and it's only 6 starts in 10 games. But I mean, you could look at that. His completion percentage went up every single year from 2021 to now. And you would say we're going to have a quarterback run heavy offense and basically a run heavy offense as well. Running backs would get a lot of carries too. And we're not going to pass that much, and we're going to make it real easy for Justin. We're going to put him on the move a lot, even when he's throwing. And we're going to hope that plus improvement in ball placement and accuracy could lead to a successful offense. Is it a great plan? No, it is not. Is it a plan that you could try because you're desperate and you got nothing else? Yes. So that's how it is, JVA. That's how I see it anyway. That's a plan you could do. I'm not saying we should do it. I'm not saying we're doing it. I'm saying it's a plan you could do. And on top of that, you could also say, and we're pairing him up with his old pal, Garrett Wilson. So Garrett would be happy, for example. So that's a part of it. And then he'll be happy. They'll be all Ohio State brothers together and all of that. And all of those things combined, you would hope to get better results out of Mr. Fields. And says, what about thinking is overrated? This is why people who aren't funny shouldn't make jokes. Like Woody Johnson was obviously trying to make a joke, but if you're not funny, don't try to make jokes. You come out looking like a moron. Thinking's overrated. I think somebody said to him, what do you think is going to happen or something like that? And he said, thinking's overrated. Trying to say like, we don't care about what anybody thinks. We care about winning, something like that. But instead it comes out like this. And now it's forever, associated with the Jets and with Woody that thinking is overrated. That's why you shouldn't go for those jokes, Woody. Just, if it's not your bag, it's not your bag, buddy. You know what I mean? Yeah. A quarterback that can run, tight ends that can block, Brees and Garrett. I mean, it's not the worst plan in the world. Is it the greatest plan in the world? No. You'd rather have a quarterback who can do it all, like a Jaden Daniels, for example, or CJ, a young quarterback who can do it all, like that, or CJ Stroud, or one of these young guys who can do everything. But it's not the worst plan in the world. And the reason there are a lot of teams that are going to want Justin Fields. So you may not So people out there may not want to, may not be in favor of Justin Fields joining your team, but there are a lot of people, a lot of fan bases that I've seen, and a lot of them are advocating for Fields. So there's a lot of sentiment out there, like I just explained, about why he would be a good option for those teams. And that tells me, generally speaking, that there could be a pretty big market for him. And then if that's the case, and if that's the way they decide, these are a lot of ifs, we don't know. If that's the way Mougey wants to go, then you're going to have to sell Fields on why should he come to us. One of the reasons would be Garrett Wilson. The other one would be you can start here. You can win the job. We would probably not give him the job. We would say you got to beat out Tyrod and you got to beat out Jordan Travis. But we would say to him, don't you think you could beat those guys out? And he would probably think to himself, yes, I can beat those guys out. And so you can start. We'll give you an incentive-laden deal where number of games started, number whatever, all the incentives that you get, and you can make it a lucrative contract because it's realistic for you to hit these incentives here as opposed to somewhere else, maybe not. And we can pair you up with your old buddy Garrett Wilson. Okay, so that's good. And we have a decent offensive line here, especially if we sign Morgan. We got a pretty decent line. We got a good running game. If we sign Mo Alley Cox, who can block people, we could add another blocker to the line. So it's an option. It's an option. It's not the best option. It's an option. Joe Mike, Denver, last 4 drafts, Surtain and Knicks. Their 3 seconds have included 2 All-Pros. They've got All-Pro in the 3rd round, 10 flex home runs on free agency. Yeah, they've done well. I mean, Jonathan Cooper, look at their team. They made the playoffs with a bunch of guys you don't even know the names on the defense. I don't know who half of their people are, other than Surtain. So they've done well under George Payton, other than that stupid Russell Wilson trade. Phil Adams, rich people rarely make good comedians. Well, probably not necessarily rich people, but probably rich people who inherited their money. If they just got handed their money, probably not. A self-made guy, I could see that because there has to be some suffering. At the sort of base level of comedy is some level of suffering. And if you just inherited millions and billions of dollars, how much suffering did you do, really? Brick Johnson is probably not cracking too many hysterical jokes. At the bottom, at the foundation of comedy is a little bit of suffering. You got to suffer at least a little bit to make some to come up with some comedic nuggets, as we say. Alan Dodds, here we go. So this 1,100 yards, the second most rushing yards in a single season ever. So there you go. Why don't people give this man his credit? I mean, that season he had in 2020, sure, they only won 3 games, but he threw for over 2,200 yards. Okay, not great, but he ran for 1,143 yards, 7.1 yards per pop. I mean, this is now he did have 16 fumbles, so that's also not good. Justin, he led the league in fumbleias, so that's also not good, and also led the league in sacks. Also not good. But this is a guy who's an elite runner. Let's just put it that way. Elite. He's not good. He's not okay. This is an elite runner. Probably a little notch below Lamar, I would say. And so that if that's the case and that's your guy, then you have to tailor the offense to the skill set of the players you have. And it's a bigger point than just Justin Fields. I think we want coaches in general who are going to tailor the program to the players that we have and their skill sets. So we're not just going to come in and say, this is the playbook, doofus, get it or get out. That's not what we're doing. You heard Ben Johnson this week talk about he's not going to come in and bring the Lions playbook and drop it in front of Caleb Williams and say, okay, memorize that in 2 weeks. See you later. Like, he's not going to do that, he said. And this is smart. He said, we're going to cater our playbook here to the skill sets that Caleb Williams has. And to me, that is the way you have to do it. And one of the things we have not seen with the Jets of late is a flexibility. These guys have been way too stubborn with their system. Oh, my system's the greatest. We got to keep it simple. We can't change a thing. And this guy, we can't figure out how to use Denzel Mims and Malachi Corley, whoever it may be. We can't figure out an offense that Zach Wilson could run, for example. Maybe Zach Wilson couldn't run any offense. We don't know. But so that one's a little weird. But, as soon as Aaron Rodgers got injured, there was no way we could possibly win with the designated backup that we chose. We chose a designated backup, Zach Wilson. And Rodgers got hurt. And then there was no way. You can't blame us for not being able to win with our chosen backup. What? What kind of a thing is that to say? That's ridiculous. Whoever your backup is, if it's not the same type of player as your starter, then you cater the offense to the skill set of that quarterback. You don't, it's just mind blowing that anybody would say that. We can't have that. So if you choose Fields, then you choose a certain type of offense and a certain type of package of plays to run. And that's the way it is. Same thing if you have some great pocket passer that you come up against, you get, and you have a guy who's just a great pocket passer, but he can't move, then you're not going to run the triple option. You're not going to run RPOs and zone reads and all that. You're going to let him stay in the pocket and throw. That's what he does. So we need to adapt, and it's just a bigger philosophy. We need to adapt everything we do to the skill sets of the players that we have. And that's what I'd like to see. So Dode says behind only Lamar Jackson. All right. So that there you go. That kind of bolsters my opinion. Fields is an elite runner, one notch below Lamar, which is a pretty high level if you think about it. So there you go. Mr. Green Jeans says Glenn is a big fan of Tony Oden. How do you know that? What's the source of that information? Real chance he could be retained as well as White Cotton. That'd be good. I'd be happy with Oden and White Cotton being retained. We already did lose some coaches. Ulbrich is gone. Nate Ollie is gone, although he was our coach a couple of years ago. Mike Rutenberg got hired on elsewhere. The Falcons and and Marquand Manuel we lost to the Giants, and those are to be expected. But if we do keep Oden and White Cotton, I'm happy with that. I'm okay with that. McGuire says hardships are the pathway into peace and hilarious comedy. Doge says Justin Fields needs the Wildcat. Yeah, you'd run some Wildcat also with Justin Fields. Yeah, you would. Sure. Why not? But it would be just a different mindset altogether, a different kind of a thing. A different kind of a thing than we've seen recently. All right, so let's see if we can get any more information. This is interesting. Staying home. This will be an interesting conversation. Breaking as of 7 minutes ago, Ian Rappaport is reporting. Staying home. Bills offensive coordinator Joe Brady, the architect. This is straight false. The architect. I can't even read this. The architect of the. Oh my goodness. The architect of the Buffalo offense has elected to remain with the Bills and pull out of the Saints HC search, per me and Tom Pelissero. So the Saints can't even get this guy to remain in the running. New Orleans had wanted to interview Brady a second time, along with Kellen Moore. Brady sticks in Buffalo. So this is kind of interesting. I mean, I think this kind of shows you that Brady knows what he has in Buffalo, which is an offense which is just, first of all, he didn't architect it. If anything, Ken Dorsey architected it. But the reality of the situation is that Josh Allen architected it, because it has one page and it just says Josh Allen run around and do stuff. So this idea that Joe Brady is somehow the architect of the Buffalo offense is ridiculous. If he was the architect of the Buffalo offense, I would think he would take a second interview with the Saints, but he probably knows, you know what? I'm good where I am. I got Josh Allen over here. We got a strong team. We're going to be in contention every year. I don't want to get exposed like I was in Carolina. Let me just stay right here. But, Ian Rappaport doing the agent a favor. It's so clear when these reporters are doing the agent a favor. The architect of the Buffalo offense, he wasn't even there when they started to turn it around. He just got lucky because he became a quarterback coach, and then Ken Dorsey lost his mind one time, and they said, "Well, we can't have you flipping out in the booth, Ken. What's going on here?" And they had just elevated Brady, but that offense is just mostly Josh Allen running around and doing stuff. So yeah, that's the top news there. Anything from the Jets? Lions are promoting Kelvin Shepherd. So somebody says Rutenberg and Ulbrich to Atlanta pose a threat to retaining Sherwood. Yeah, I believe that Dick Chimney said that. So sometimes you have to check your sources and just be careful not to repeat things as your own opinion without running it through the old brain. Here's the thing about Sherwood. He's going to be on everybody's radar. It's not just going to be on Rutenberg and Ulbricht's radar. Everybody's going to want Jamin Sherwood. Just about. Now, he might end up there because he likes Ulbricht, say. But he's a threat to leave forever. He's a really good player. Now, Ulbrich and Rudy, they're probably going to want. They might sign Brandon Eccles. They might want their guys. I mean, coaches like their guys. That's true. But yes, a reporter said that. It's true. It's also one of those things that's sort of obvious. All right, so that's that. Captain Techno, you can do it, Frankie. Do what? Do what exactly? McGuire. I mean, I don't. It's hard for me to believe that McDermott gets fired under any circumstances. I mean, I don't think the Pagulas are stupid. I just don't. Really, they're gonna upgrade. They're gonna do this. Why? I would say that if that happens, we should be laughing and we should be happy. We could probably root for this to happen because they'd be doing a massive downgrade to their brain trust. But I just don't think the Pagulas are stupid, and I don't think what's his name? What's his name? Brandon Bean, the GM, Brandon Bean. I just don't see it. I mean, it's not like they're losing in the first round to the Jets or something. They're, you know what I mean? If you're in the AFC Championship game and you lose to the Kermit McFloppies, and it's probably going to be a game. It's probably going to be a game that's close. I don't think they're going to get blown out it's very unlikely that Kansas City blows them out. And it's probably going to come down to a few close calls, and there'll probably be controversy with the refs. And if all that goes down and the Chiefs win by 2 points or something, do you really think the Pagulas are going to go, let's blame this on McDermott? I can't see it. They're in the AFC Championship game. They have their whole future set up. There's no reason at all for the Bills to do anything other than just keep on keeping on. Just keep getting better where you can, keep making great draft picks, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, to upset the apple cart because you lost to Kermit McFloppy in this scenario, I just don't see it. I'm sorry. They're not the Jets, McGuire. They're not the Jets. That's just something the Jets would do. That's something, that like the Raiders, pre-Brady Raiders would do. That's something that a bad organization would do. What I've seen out of the Pagulas for the Bills is just making right decision after right decision. Look what the Bills are doing with their stadium, their new stadium. That new stadium is incredible. McGuire, were you watching the videos I made about the Bills' new stadium? It seems to me every decision they made with that stadium is fantastic. 100% right, including having a grass field in Buffalo. And they're gonna have a heated thing underneath it to make sure it's not the frozen tundra and that it's playable at all times, et cetera, et cetera. So what I've seen out of the Pagulas, since they've been owners of, I don't know how they are with the Sabres. They also own the Sabres. But as Bills owners, I've seen them make only good decisions, and their GM is excellent. So I don't see them doing something this stupid. It would just be monumentally stupid, in my opinion. Let's get rid of a really good head coach because we lost to Kermit McFloppy. And there's going to be McFlopping tomorrow. Yeah, but I mean, let's see how it goes, McGuire. We're going to be watching this game. Join us tomorrow. This is a good promo opportunity. Join us tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. We're going to do a watch along, and we're going to watch Kermit McFloppy play. And hopefully Josh Allen doesn't do any of his flopping either, though he's not as bad as Kermit. Let's hope for a no flop game on both sides. No flopping by anybody. I don't think anybody's interested in seeing the flopping. So we'll be watching the game, and we'll try to maybe also keep an eye on fan reaction to the game as well as it's going on to see if there's any of that kind of sentiment. We could easily do that with some of our filtering capabilities on X.com. We could see what the Buffalonians are thinking and saying. But I don't see it, Eddie. Honestly, chatter out there, but from who? Dum-dums? You got to think. I mean, their GM is sharp, and the Pagulas, at least as far as the Bills are concerned, have made really good decisions, including big decisions like the stadium and how they're building that. That thing's going to be amazing from what we've seen so far, if they execute on what the plans seem to be. I mean, that's going to be an incredible stadium. And that's a huge decision. And that, I think, shows you their decision-making process. As opposed to our team, what stadium did we build? If you're going to compare, owners, one of the things you could compare them on is the stadiums that they build. Look at our stadium in New Jersey versus what they're building now in I think it's still going to be in Orchard Park, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's going to be in the park right next to this where the stadium is now. So they're going to have this state-of-the-art stadium in Buffalo, New York, of all places, with coverage of the fans and incredible heating systems. This thing's going to be phenomenal. And that is a reflection of the ownership and including their political acumen, because they had to get money from the local community. So you have to be politically active and politically savvy, something that you would hope Woody would be better at, which he is not, which is annoying because he was in politics. He was in the last administration, and he's still a numbskull, it seems like, in terms of politics. But the Pagulas navigated all of the ins and outs of the local politics to get money freed up, from public funds and all that. And so it reflects well on them that they're putting this into place, and it's going to be a phenomenal from all the plans. I mean, we got to see them execute it, but we've seen the plans and all the things they're saying now. Seems like it's going to be a phenomenal situation there for the people in Western New York. So that reflects well on them. And so I just don't see it. But let's see what happens. I mean, now if they get blown out and it's not competitive, I mean, I still can't see it. You're in the AFC Championship game. You're one game away from the damn Super Bowl. It's like they're right there. How much closer do you want? I mean, yeah, you could say we want McDermott to get us to the Super Bowl, right? But I mean, they're pretty damn close already. Yeah. Mr. Green Jeans said, McDermott chatters nonsense. The chatter. Where's this chatter coming from? You hear the same crap from Pittsburgh every year about Tomlin. Fan noise. Now, I don't know if that's true about the Buffalo fan noise. It is true about the Pittsburgh fan noise. That is true. I can verify that. I lived in Pittsburgh. I know the noise personally. So that is true. But I'm not so sure that, I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Maybe there is a bunch of fan noise to get rid of McDermott. I can't imagine it, though. That would be really irrational. That would be really irrational. So Phil Adams says Princess Mahomes will be on her best behavior tomorrow. NFL have asked him not to make it too obvious. Kermit McFloppy, if you could make it a little not so obvious, you can kind of make it, keep it reasonable. Kermit, please. Can you not do a ballerina dance on the sideline before you step out of bounds, please? And then when you're falling down, flop. Somehow while he's falling down, he's flopping. That's a new one. Okay, they're talking about Grant Udinsky. What the hell this is for the OC position, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. How mad are the Tampa Bay Buccaneer fans? Talking about mad fans. What about the Buccaneer fans? How mad do you think they are right now? They thought they had everything lock, stock, and barrel. Liam Cohen had a different idea. He had a little different idea. They thought he was coming to work. He wasn't. He was on an airplane. He was on an aeroplane. Yeah, AFG says Woody tried to get a stadium in Manhattan. Yep. But you know who scuttlebutt? You know who ruined that plan? Mike Francesa, at the behest of guess who? James Dolan. James Dolan didn't want the competition for MSG in Manhattan, so he used his mouthpiece, Mike Francesa, to poison the opinion of the fans. And once public sentiment went south for it, based on basically Mike Francesa going on the air every day and hammering making all the negative comments, then the politicians said, nope, we're not doing this. Public doesn't seem to want it. Get it out of here. James Dolan wins the battle. But that's also a situation where Woody is showing his political neophyteness. You have to be able, so you could say that's unfair if I James Dolan this, that, or the other thing. James Dolan was politically savvy enough to do what he needed to do to kill that stadium. That's what politics is. That's what it is. We live in a brutal world, man. And if you're going to be at that level, you need to be a cutthroat assassin, ready to operate on that high level where you know how to manipulate the media if you need to, politicians if you need to, business people if you need to, the fans if you need to. Whoever needs to be influenced to get what you need done needs to then be influenced to get what you need done. That's called political savvy. And it seems to me that Woody Johnson and the Johnsons don't have any of it. And it seems to me that the Pagulas and James Dolan, for whatever negatives you might say about them, they at least have the political savvy to navigate through the political environment, which includes public sentiment, which includes the media, to get what they want done. That's what it is. And that's what sucks about Woody. You would think he would have learned something, having been in a presidential administration, albeit as a diplomat, but still, you would think he would have used his time there to learn and navigate how to navigate that sort of stuff. Or maybe it's hard to learn. I don't know. But he certainly, from what we can tell, has not learned how to do that. And that's very annoying, in my opinion. You don't have to be fans, McGuire. But look, excuse me. Look at how they're operating. Look at how they're operating. That stadium is amazing. They have stability in their football organization. I don't know what's going on with the Sabres. I'm not a hockey fan, but they have stability in the football operations. They've built a consistent winner. They have won the AFC East, 5 years in a row now? I mean, 5-time champ? 5-time in a row AFC East champ? That's impressive. They have the quarterback, they have the coach, they have the GM. They have a stable, successful franchise that's getting an incredible stadium in 2 years, I think, or 2020. I think it's going to open by the 2026 season, if I'm not mistaken. And so that is also going to give them an even bigger home field advantage. I don't think people understand just how good of a deal they did on this stadium if it executes as the plans are. They built it in a way where the noise is going to be even more in that stadium by how they built the structure of the stadium. The Bills are going to get an even bigger home field advantage when they move into their new stadium. Do people understand this? Do people understand this? They have the elite quarterback. They have a good, solid head coach. They have a good, solid GM. They're going to have an even bigger home field advantage. They already have a home field advantage just based on the weather and the quarterback they have that you don't have. Probably, it's very unlikely anybody can match the skill set that Josh Allen has that enables him to play like he does in the weather, right? They have that. You don't. They have the home field advantage with all the crazy Buffalo fans. And now it's about to get even more, even better, because it's going to be louder and the fans are going to be more comfortable because they've built in all this coverage and heat stuff. And it's insanely good. And so now their home field advantage is going to get even better. And we are playing in an air conditioner in Jersey. I mean, come on. That nobody wants to go to, and that has no advantages whatsoever at all. It has a terrible playing surface. Oh, and by the way, the Buffalo field is grass, natural grass, by the way. So free agents, people who don't want to feel like they're running around on frozen concrete when they play football games, people who want their body to be ready to go by Tuesday rather than Saturday. You see what I'm saying? Our free agents, or maybe they would want to go to Buffalo a little bit more because the playing surface is natural grass and not frozen turf. I mean, so I don't know what, if you were a Bills fan, McGuire, what that the Pagulas have done with the football team could you not be a fan of? What could they have done different? I don't get it, McGuire. I don't get it. Yeah, MetLife is the Costco of stadiums, exactly. Without the discount. Yeah, exactly. It's like what is the point of this stadium? Now, the stadium is very profitable. So if you look at it from a business point of view, the Johnsons and the Maras and the Tishes, the Giants people will tell you this is a great, what are you talking about? This is a great venue. In fact, the Jets media guide listed as the #1 most profitable venue in the world. Let me say that again. MetLife Stadium is listed in the Jet Media Guide as the #1 most profitable venue in the world. So they would say, what are you talking about? We built an amazing thing here. And from a business point of view, it'd be hard to argue. But from a football point of view, I would argue strenuously. So, yeah, you can say it's the Costco of stadiums and all this, and you can make fun of it all you want. It looks like an air conditioner, this, that, and the other thing. It's very profitable for the owners. And guess what? That's all they care about. I think they care about people getting injured. I think they care about people getting injured. Yeah, you could say that, but you need to work with, that's why you need to work with both parties. And you can't be so, if you're in a position like Woody, you do. Dolan is a dickhead. Yeah, of course. But you know what? He owns Madison Square Garden, the Knicks, the Rangers, and MSG TV. And you don't. And he blocked the Woody's Manhattan Stadium when somebody tried to challenge, MSG's authority as the #1 venue. You want to come to Manhattan, you come to MSG for concerts, for this, that, the other thing. And he used his mouthpiece, Mike Francesa, to poison the public. Then the public opinion went down, and then the politician said, no good, no way. So you can say what you want. You can say what you want, but that's what happened. Phil Adams says a 75,000 seat waterfront jet stadium in Queens would be a worldwide pull for. Yeah, exactly. But you need to have a vision for it. That's a natural place for it. Somewhere on Long Island or Queens is the natural place for it. But you need to have a vision. And I've often talked about the grand vision that somebody would have to have. To pull that off, and you would need to have a big, big vision. And Woody would need to sell it. I mean, because Woody's not going to pull out of that stadium. I just don't think. It doesn't seem like there's any real desire on Woody's part to get out of that stadium. So we'll have to see. According to a recent online search, MetLife isn't in the top 5. Top 5 of what? Most profitable venues in the world? That's what the Jets Media Guide says. So I'm citing my sources. Now, I'm not saying that's right, but that's what they write in their media guide. It's the #1 most profitable venue in the world. So there you go. AFG, I never missed a Knicks game till Dolan took over. I'm sure he doesn't care. He's making his money, dude. Now, I'm a Knicks fan from way back. I was like a Patrick Ewing era Knicks fan. I was a big Patrick Ewing guy, big Mark Jackson guy, big John Starks guy, Charles Oakley, those crews, those teams, those squads. Those were my boys right there. And I thought I just really followed the team pretty closely back then. But then after that, after Ewing was done, I was pretty much done with basketball. I just didn't find it appealing anymore. All right, so that's it for the news. We're going to wrap up here, unless there's breaking news. As of 6 minutes ago, there is breaking news from Nick Underhill. Quote, I'm told that Cliff Kingsbury hasn't decided whether or not to take an interview with the Saints. He's fully locked in on Washington's season and won't begin evaluating his options until they're done playing. So that's a little bit of a Cliff Kingsbury update. Some people are very high on Cliff Kingsbury, of course. So there's that. Here's an interesting nugget from Connor Hughes as of 7 minutes ago. Interesting nugget. The Jets tried multiple times to interview George Paton, now the Broncos general manager, for their vacancy in 2019. They requested twice before hiring Joe Douglas. Paton declined those requests. Now the Jets get his right hand man in Darren Mougey. So that's interesting that we had apparently a pretty great interest in trying to speak to George Paton, who eventually, of course, went to the Broncos. And before this turnaround with Sean Payton was best known for his Russell Wilson blunder, but now Sean Payton's there, things are turning around. All right, so I think that's it as far as all the news is concerned. I'm not seeing anything really newsworthy coming through the old wires here. So we'll call it a night for this live stream. Thanks for joining. In case you missed the news, the Jets have actually hired Darren Mougey, Darren Mougey to be their general manager. Let's check something here. Darren Mougey to be their, okay, good. To be their general manager officially. So we now have a general manager. We now have a head coach. It's Aaron Glenn. It's Darren Mougey. So now we can move forward to thinking about staff hires and then eventually the quarterback position and then eventually the draft and everything like that, free agents, then the draft, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We will return tomorrow, 10 a.m., Coffee with Frankie, just to see what's going on, any updates, any new information, old information, bueno information, poor information, any kind of information. And then we'll come back tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. to do a watch along of the AFC Championship game between the Chiefs and the Bills. And that'll be a very exciting game. Heavyweight matchup. We'll see what happens. Kermit McFloppy versus Paul Bunyan. We'll see which one comes out on top tomorrow night. So tomorrow, 10 a.m. and then coming back at 6:30 p.m. I'll see you then. Thanks.